I have 1:06 p.m.
Okay. Roll call it.
Yes. So
Okay.
roll call. We have committee member Holly Joseph,
Present.
committee member Kelly Davis,
Present.
committee member Emily Kahn,
Present.
and committee member Jennifer Carico, I believe is how you pronounce it, and who is absent. And our EPC City Council liaison, Diana Hawkins Manuelian, is also absent.
I have it as Lewis, but you told me you're going to catch me up. So,
Yes,
okay.
I'll go over that in the update.
Are there any public comments? I'm going to go with the no.
Don't see anybody here in the participant list.
Yeah, exactly.
The invisible Zoom participant.
The peanut gallery is quiet. Okay. And then have you all had a chance to go over the copious last minutes? Because I don't know if you all remember last meeting, we did a lot. I cannot motion to approve the meeting minutes, but either of you could.
Okay, I move we approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
I will second the motion.
Are there any nays? Okay. I believe the motion carries. We approve the meeting minutes. And we have like I guess 2 absents, but all right. And I guess we'll go
for that as well. For the approved minutes, it's ayes or nays, and that would be Chair Joseph.
Yeah, it's I as well.
And then committee member Davis.
I'm sorry. One more time. I'm looking at the minutes. I'm like, oh my God, it's way longer than I'm sorry. I've dropped the ball.
Oh, no worries. I was just doing roll call for the minutes. You already motioned it and seconded it, and I'm just doing a roll call for ayes or noes to approve.
Present? Is that?
No.
Oh.
It's do you approve or disapprove the
minutes? I approve.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Oh my gosh.
It's okay. It's a
Roll
lot because you've covered a lot.
Yeah.
And then committee member Khan.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you, Jake, for typing up so much.
Of course, no problem.
It was a lot. Okay. Our big action item today is usually an action item that will take several meetings, but we're not going to get to that first. I want to hear what both of you have to tell us, because I think you both have a lot to share with us.
Yes, thank you, Chair Joseph. I'll go ahead and begin. So if we're on item 3, committee and staff member comments. First update is that following the distribution of the EPC packet, there was a reorganization in the City Council. As many of you may already know, the town did appoint a new mayor, which is Elizabeth Lewis, along with some of the other reappointments. And also, I guess I should back up a step. As you also may know, that Diana, who previously served on the EPC, is now an appointed member of the City Council. So that was a changing of guard that happened a few weeks back. And also, as I mentioned, after we distributed the EPC packet, an agenda under consideration today, there was a reappointment for the City Council liaison for the EPC. So Mayor Lewis no longer is the appointed City Council liaison. She has appointed Diana to be our EPC new council member liaison. So that's the change from what the printed agenda currently notes. And on that point, Diana did contact both Jake and I late this morning, is that she has a scheduling conflict. So unfortunately, she will not be able to attend today's EPC meeting.
Perfect.
The second and third items that I wanted to update the EPC on have to do with follow-up from last night's city council meeting. There were 2 items on the agenda that have relevancy to the EPC. The first one that I'll talk about was there was direction given to us staff to present to the council for discussion the consideration of hiring a sustainability coordinator staffing position. Right now, as you know, Jake and I both serve in the planning department primarily, but we do have slated resources and responsibilities related to sustainability efforts in the town, one of them being the staff liaisons to the EPC. So what was considered last night was a discussion to take those responsibilities currently fulfilled by both Jake and I, and put them under the umbrella of a potential new position that would be slated just to support sustainability efforts and initiatives throughout the town, including support of the EPC. And at the end of the meeting last night, the council did direct staff to move forward in evaluating such a position on a part-time basis, which would mean a position of 20 hours per week, dedicated again just for sustainability efforts at this point, as we may know, that would likely be in the form of a consultant role versus a town staff employee role. They further directed staff to, as part of the evaluation, identify such a position in the town's budget. So what all of that means is that while there was, I'll call it informal approval and direction for support of such a position, there are some steps that need to be taken in order for that position to get vetted and formalized. So in terms of timing, presuming that final authorization is granted by the council, I wouldn't anticipate that happening anytime in advance of, certainly not your next regularly scheduled meeting of March, potentially in May, depending on when this position gets integrated into the town's draft budget. That could happen at 2 points in time. There's a mid-year budget that happens in February, so next month, or there's the standard update, every annual update to the fiscal year budget, which happens in June. So we are going to continue moving forward, we, Jake and I, as providing your staffing support to the EPC. But I did, of course, want to put on radar that, again, if this moves forward, that more than likely by the end of the year, this new staffing position would be taking over the roles right now that Jake and I fulfill. And at 20 hours a week, that's substantially more time than either Jake or I have slated in our task responsibilities to provide to the EPC. So really, I think you could take away that the council was supportive of really kind of enhancing and potentially expanding sustainability related initiatives and programs throughout the town by giving direction to create such a position. Related to that item, there was a separate item on the council agenda that had to do with the leaf blower ordinance. And I'll just give a little bit of background. I think we talked about this at the last meeting, but in terms of the history. So, the EPC did discuss this item several times over the course of the last several years, as has the City Council. So back in November, we presented a draft ordinance to the council, we as staff. There's a pretty significant amount of public comment that was associated with it, pretty divided, I'd say, both on the pro side of restrictions and the con side of restrictions. The council directed staff to revise the ordinance, simplify it, create less restrictions on the use and or distinction of type of leaf blower, i.e. gas versus electric, as well as create a draft town piloted program for the use potential use of electric leaf blowers at the park and in the streets, and some more information for their consideration. So that was done, and that was considered at last night's council meeting. At the end of the meeting, the council did not adopt any amendments to the ordinance. What they did do was provide 2 points of direction to staff. One being that they did authorize the staff to move forward in the drafted town piloted program for the use of electric leaf blowers, again, at the park and in the streets for a certain period of time. They authorized the funds to purchase the equipment, since right now the town does only have gas powered leaf blowers. Use them, evaluate them, create a log in terms of hours spent, efficiencies, etc., and then report back to the council with their findings so that they can take that into consideration should they and when they consider any actual amendments to the leaf blower ordinance from how it currently reads. Combined with that direction, as well as interrelated back to the sustainability coordinator staffing position that I just mentioned, they did direct staff to also work towards developing a public education and outreach program regarding leaf blowers to the community as a whole. So they thought it could also be helpful to help educate our community differences between an electric blower and a gas blower, the differences between a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke gas blower, some of the other environmental issues that are related, cost differences, resources that may be available as they relate to either stipends for a trade-in and or purchase, and or where folks can voluntarily choose to go purchase potentially an electric blower if they currently have a gas blower. With that said, however, they felt that that type of program may be better served once a sustainability coordinator staffing both resource in terms of time of staff as well as potential monies associated with it get on board formally in the town. So it's something that is on the future plate for the EPC to address, just not at this time. Again, wanted to run that parallel with the sustainability coordinator for efficiency and enhancement purposes. If that was to happen now, it likely wouldn't be able to be developed to the level of either timeliness and or detail that otherwise may be able to happen when there's more dedicated resources available. Let's see here. Back to the sustainability coordinator item. One thing that could potentially be forthcoming on an EPC agenda, working with the chair and with yourselves, and as discussion develops further, could be some assistance requested by the council to the EPC to help develop sort of a task list and a position definition for the sustainability coordinator. What kind of tasks would this individual, oh, looks like we got somebody waiting there. Jake, Jennifer, excuse me. What that position would look like, what would be their identified roles, responsibilities, and tasks. If the position does move forward in a consultant form versus a town staff employee form, then likely there would be an associated RFP or request for proposal document that would need to be created and distributed to consulting firms. Is a competitive process to go out to try and find the right individual to fulfill that role. So that could certainly be work forthcoming for the EPC to provide some assistance on prior, of course, then to that position being formalized by the town. So I know that was a lot of information and a lot of it sort of crosses lines from one into the other, but all relatively interrelated. which is why I felt it was important to kind of kickstart the meeting and give you an update on where the town is, just in their thoughts and approaches on sustainability in this community and what they envision in the immediate future. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you may have. If I don't have an answer, we'll certainly get it to you. And as that position and direction becomes more available, both to us in terms of how best to march forward and moving the position consideration forward, we will be looping back with the EPC.
Can I just ask a quick question? I guess my question is this: like, when you said assist in the search, how would we do it? Like, how would that go about? Because it's a 20-hour role. Would we help you find it? I'm guessing it's a consultant. It's not an employee. There's a lot of big questions.
Yeah, I think that the assistance piece that the EPC could potentially support would be the development of that RFP or request for proposal. These are written documents that are distributed out from the town website. They could be sent directly to consulting firms. Town staff would actually be the ones to manage and distribute that, but the EPC could help in the development of that RFP. An RFP will define the scope of what services are being looked for, qualifications for an individual, the crux of that document. I mean, the hourly rates and the benefits and that kind of thing, that would need to fall solely in the laps of town staff, but the crux of the document could be something that the EPC could help create, at least in draft form, and present to the council for them to tweak and or fine tune.
So to me, this sounds kind of like it would be really useful to maybe look at other job descriptions of other sustainability coordinators that are out there and see what suits our needs the best.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, I would recommend just pause. We would need to pause any efforts at this point. I wanted to just inform you of the big picture. I need to first confer with the city manager's office. One piece of information that I failed to mention before that I should also mention is that the direction in the possibility of creating this position is that it would fall under the management of the city manager's office, unlike now it's falling under the responsibilities of the planning department. So I need to coordinate with them, and since again this just happened last night and there wasn't any definitive line item tasks per se, we need to figure out our best next steps in line with that council direction. But absolutely, I think that's a wonderful idea, and certainly could prove to be a beneficial and useful starting point.
If this all moves forward, then I'm happy
to
take the lead.
They gave
Job descriptions.
they gave the blessing, so to speak, to look into it. It was really a go or no go, so we got the go. It's going to be fine tuning it, and at the end of the day, what that will look like, both in again, I go back to that staffing and financial resourcing. So
Stephanie, apologies if you said this, but what's the time frame there for that? Like the earliest possible?
yeah, so I don't know. It could be one of two timeframes, because the town's adopted budget has 2 times a year that it's evaluated. Once because we run on fiscal year, so July 1st to June 30th of every year. So we have an upcoming mid-year budget cycle amendment, and that will be happening in February. So it could happen then. Or if not, then the next available time frame would be at the end of this fiscal year, or June of 2021. So it has to be one of those 2 timeframes. I just don't know. I don't think the city manager would know at this point either, since the direction was just given last night. But we will know sooner than later, particularly if it's going to be considered at the mid-year budget in February. It would need to be acted on rather quickly. Now I'm thinking out loud. It could be beneficial then at this point, since the regularly scheduled EPC meetings are only every other month, as we all know, which would put us in March, well, that might be okay. Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking out loud if it would be necessary or beneficial to start talking about this like in the form of an ad hoc subcommittee prior to, if it goes to February mid-year budget request. But I think we would still be okay, because even if it goes in February for mid-year budget, they're not adopting or authorizing the scope of what that position would look like. It's just the money side of it. And then the development can happen after. So it then could potentially be an item on your regularly scheduled March agenda.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out like how that looks like. Okay. No, I think we won't know much till after February, and we will probably need a special meeting because of Earth Day.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that could get added to the special meeting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it certainly could. I would recommend, once we get to item 5 on the agenda, if at the conclusion of that discussion, there is a request for a special meeting to be scheduled by the EPC in its entirety, that it be considered to be scheduled in February after the regularly scheduled council meeting, just in case. So then you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak.
Okay. That sounds actually like a really good plan, Stephanie.
Okay. And that's it. That's all I have in terms of staff member comments and updates. Jake, was there anything that you wanted to add or anything that I omitted for those particular items?
I don't have anything to add to those items. The only 2 things that I just wanted to bring to the table to remind the EPC of what we're working on currently on EPC or ad hoc subcommittee groups is the website updates. I will be working with ad hoc subcommittee member Emily to make updates to the website. Those have not started yet, but will start before our next meeting. And that also goes over to the next ad hoc subcommittee for the green building materials, in which I'll be working with the ad hoc subcommittee of Holly to create those materials. So there's more to come on those at future meetings, but they are items that we're working on currently. And that's it for me.
Are you sure, Jake? I'm just teasing because there was so much from Stephanie.
I'm like, am I
I'm
missing
still
something?
digesting.
It's very possible.
So I just wait to hear from you on that, right, Jake?
Yes, yeah, I'll be reaching out in this week or the next.
Okay, thank you.
Or next week for that initial direction.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. That sounds really good. All right. Do you have any? I just want to make sure, because that's a lot to take in. Do we have any additional comments? Okay.
Thinking about the
so
leaf blower thing. Hold on. So that was also tucked in there.
Yep.
I'm just thinking over it, because it sounds like now there may not even be an ordinance for, I don't know how long they're looking for this research to be done, but a long time.
So that's correct. So the council opted not to introduce any amendments to the existing leaf blower ordinance. Instead, they directed that the town go ahead and move forward with the town piloted program. So that will take some time. All they did last night was authorize, yes, go ahead, purchase the equipment, and then start using it. So I would guesstimate, without being able to confer with the public works director, who's really the one who's managing this program and implementing the program, since it's public works staff that maintain the parks and the streets, et cetera, that, they've got to get it. We're at the end of January. They probably want to run it at least a month to be able to have some data to report back on. So maybe in March, I'd say March, or at the March or April council meeting, they'd be able to report back, and then where the discussion goes from there is, is another thing that, I can't unfortunately confirm, at this point in time. So that's one piece of the leaf blower puzzle. The second piece has to do with, again, the council direction to work on some type of enhanced public education and outreach program. But again, the direction received was that should happen in line when there are additional staffing and financial resources involved to create such a program.
Yeah.
If we move forward with it under the current umbrella, again, the amount of staffing resources available through the positions that Jake and I fulfill is significantly much more limited than what a full-time, a part-time but full-time dedicated individual could provide to the EPC and other associated efforts at 20 hours a week. So
That makes sense.
it's hard to wait, but I think the idea was that the end product would be more robust and more beneficial than if we were to try to hit the ground running today under our more limited capacities.
Could I add to that just a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, hello.
Hi. Sorry, I'm George, the city manager. For those of you that I haven't met individually yet. Also at yesterday's meeting, and Stephanie articulated a little bit of it about the pilot program here. I expect that data collection to be longer than just a month or two, only because as the seasons change, the viability of electric two-stroke, four-stroke for use in the town streets and medians, park areas, drainage ditches, and other areas where the Public Works Department actually uses leaf blowers differently than you would on a residential property are going to be different at different times of the year. So the council is going to want to have that data before they make a decision with respect to it.
That makes sense, George, because you have more like the wet, in theory, the wet, or not that we have it so much this year, that takes more to blow. And where that people often, people who are doing the maintenance prefer the gas for that reason.
Right.
But there's, I think what we had discussed, and you weren't part of the meeting, was just like how much you're actually breathing in at a 4-stroke versus a 2-stroke motor. All the pollutants that you're ingesting as the gardener. I mean, you may have your personal preference out of comfort, but there's also just a lot of exhaust you're breathing in. So
yeah, that's another component altogether.
Yeah, but it's just like a health and safety kind of thing beyond even environmental.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, and I hope that in kind of the report back, even in keeping the log of what everyone's what that looks like in this public works piece of it, they're also going to factor in about how much of, like what those pollutants might be, etc.
Yes, I agree.
It's expensive to get even more expensive healthcare for staff. It's easier to get a nicer blower.
That's true.
Yeah. I can send all of the members a link to the report that was prepared for the leaf blower ordinance that was considered by the council last night. You'll see within it there's a defined table that outlines the associated costs with the purchase of an electric blower, backup batteries, and some other sort of supportive textual information that would be logged and for consideration once the pilot program gets underway.
That sounds perfect, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
So any other questions that I can help answer regarding either the leaf blower ordinance or the sustainability coordinator staffing position?
I think like there's still so many things up in the air. It's hard to know what to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. This is awesome news. This is like years of planning, kind of.
And as information becomes available, we'll certainly report back. And it sounds like, before we jump into item 5 on the agenda, that there may be a special meeting requested to be held in February. And depending on the timing of that, we may have more information to share with you at that point, possibly.
That sounds perfect.
Okay. So not to go out of order of the agenda, that concludes the staff member comments. I see that we did have our newest EPC member, Jennifer Carico, jump in after we started our discussions. I don't know if you'd like Chair Joseph to introduce Jennifer, have her say a few words.
Jennifer, would you mind unmuting yourself and introducing yourself to the group? We're all happy to have you.
Not at all. Apologies for delay, folks. I had an unexpected teacher call.
There's always excitement.
But I'm Jennifer, and thank you for your patience with me. I'm excited to be joining you guys. I did read about the leaf blower ordinance and the position, so I hear that we have discussed it, and yeah, so I guess I'm a lawyer by training and have been a full-time mom for the last 10 years.
Well, we're really excited to have you, Jennifer. I'm sure you will be quite helpful.
Well,
Kind
I
of
hope
lost
to be.
Welcome. It's nice to meet you. We look forward to working together.
Nice to meet you guys too. Thank you.
We're all
Jennifer-
looking forward to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm really curious to know what area of law you are trained in.
Well,
If you're willing to share, sorry.
oh no, yeah, I'm kind of an oddball. I did a lot of public service. I worked as an assistant attorney general, and then I worked in Washington. So lots of I worked on the Hill for the Judiciary Committee. So I kind of call that the public service, and then worked as a prosecutor. And right now, I mean, I came back and then I worked here for startups for a while. And but right now I am doing volunteer work. I'm representing the unaccompanied minors on the border.
Mm-hmm.
So, pro bono, kind of that sort of thing. So nothing super technical.
Well, I am part of my work is as an international student advisor and looking at compliance things. So I don't know. I feel like it can get technical really fast.
Wow. Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
So immigration law is a messy business.
It is messy.
Okay. Shall we get, so Jennifer, we're really happy to have you. We have an event we do every year, Earth Day. We're the only committee that's chartered with an event. And so it's kind of exciting we get to do it, but it can be kind of a little bit like all over the map trying to get it done. And obviously in COVID, it adds an additional layer. Our last year's event got canceled because of COVID because it was so close. And so we're going to try to revisit that again. I'm just trying to give you the back history, so it's not a surprise when you dive in. Your first meeting is a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I'm nervous, but I also see that we have that coming up, and it does seem like a huge event.
But I will let someone else actually speak more to it than I did because they really worked on it last year. So why don't we, I guess, go into the the actual the main event of this big meeting, besides everything else, is Earth Day, since it's our big deliverable. So I would actually prefer this to be taken over at this point, because I didn't plan as much about the movie. We discussed, we had many movies last year, and we came up with showing one movie, which was going to be shown on HBO, I believe, and it was Ice on Fire.
Yeah, and I can take it from there and give a description of the efforts that went forward last year, and the direction that staff was given from the EPC at the last meeting. So for this item, each year, the EPC plans an Earth Day event to engage and educate the community on Earth and climate-related topics, as well as promote the goals of the town's climate action plan. In years prior, the town of Atherton's Environmental Programs Committee has hosted Earth Day events, which were successfully implemented and included efforts organized as symposiums, panels, fairs, and movie showings. And in 2020, the Earth Day event was planned to set forth in the Holbrook Palmer Park in our Jennings Pavilion. And the event program consisted of a few features, including a movie showing as the main feature, a movie called Ice on Fire, which was directed by Leonardo DiCaprio and was a documentary that focused on the global climate crisis. There was also a sustainability and action themed or climate action themed art exhibit where art was to be displayed by local sustainability organizations as well as students from the town's schools. There were going to be educational and engaging virtual reality experiences from equipment that was offered from Stanford Lab as well as the town's public library. The town was also to host vendors to share sustainable resources, products, and opportunities by local sustainability and climate action-based organizations. And we're also going to give out some sustainable movie theater popcorn and give away some free swag. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, the Atherton 2020 Earth Day event was canceled, as we all know. And at the last EPC meeting, the EPC expressed the desire to further discuss and consider converting the 2020 Earth Day event into a 2021 virtual Earth Day event. In addition to the brief summary that I've included above, or I guess included here within my presentation, I've also included the work plan as attachment 1 to the memo, in which the budget and proposed work plan have been presented. And this was approved by the City Council for the year 2020. The 2020 Atherton Earth Day event had multiple ad hoc subcommittees that were appointed to accomplish the planning efforts of the Earth Day event. This included a main ad hoc subcommittee of, I believe it was Diana Hawkins-Manwellian and Kelly Davis, that they drafted the work plan and worked to reach out to vendors, design the flyer, and coordinate the event features. And then later on in the planning efforts, an ad hoc subcommittee of Diana Hawkins-Manwellian and Emily Kahn were appointed to work on the marketing and outreach efforts for the event. The overall event budget granted by the City Council is $5,000. This money is typically used to pay for the design, production, and distribution of a townwide mailer, the production of a promotional banner, and to place ads in the almanac and other local marketing ads, and to purchase any food or refreshments for the event. This year, there's also $5,000 available for an Earth Day event or other, I guess, EPC activities in which the EPC may plan to do. And then ultimately, the ideas and recommendations put forth by the EPC on a potential 2021 Earth Day event should be incorporated into a final draft and recommended 2021 Earth Day work plan, including a line item budget to be presented by staff to the City Council for consideration. And with all that being said, the EPC may wish to continue discussion of event details, logistics, marketing efforts, and appoint members to complete tasks and efforts to prepare and implement the 2021 Earth Day work plan and event. Excuse me. And that's it from me for the introduction. I also have a couple of comments from our City Council liaison, Diana. who sent over an email to convey some messages related to this item, and I'm just going to open them up and reference them here.
If I can, really quick, Jake, while you're opening up that email, another important point to convey is that should a draft 2021 Earth Day work program be developed by the EPC, that does need to go to the City Council for final approval and authorization before any steps can be taken to implement any of the identified actions or the program itself. So just to keep this on radar for consideration, if the committee does choose to recommend moving forward with some type of event around Earth Day, which is typically around April 22nd, I believe. There are only 2 additional council meetings, regularly scheduled council meetings before April. There are also study sessions, so we would want to be cognizant of those dates as well if you do develop a draft work plan to present, to allow yourself enough time, should it be approved, to actually implement the actions necessary to hold the event.
And then the message that was relayed from Diana highlighted some details about the Earth Day event for consideration in your discussion for the 2021 Earth Day event. And that includes so she's highlighted that the #1 movie choice that was included in the work plan from last year is now available. So consideration of maybe switching out the movie that is being featured. She also highlighted that the EPC should further discuss the feasibility of doing a virtual event, or if there are any other opportunities for similar events to be hosted by the EPC that is COVID friendly, such as a tree planting in the new City Hall grounds, as well as consideration of thinking of other places that the budget that is allotted for the Earth Day event and other EPC activities, considering how that could be used in other places, if not on an Earth Day event, if you find that it may not be feasible. I think that's the gist of what she has conveyed here for your consideration in your discussion moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, that's a lot to digest. So it would be a choice of like revamping the Earth Day idea that we have currently, making it more of like a tree idea, or I guess a new idea could be also on the floor. If the thing is, I'm not sure how we would do the movie. Like, I don't know what mechanism between the movie, like doing the movie and having people sign up for it would be, but it is very COVID friendly and it does get the awareness that we're looking for.
Did Diana have an idea of how, if we, for example, made the movie available to everyone, how you do that? I think this is what you're saying, Holly. You're not sure what the platform would be, but
Yeah, exactly.
did she have an idea?
So last year we bought a DVD which could be shown to large audiences. I know in my efforts of looking for that, or in our efforts for looking for that DVD, there were options that allowed you to stream a movie for 24 hours at a time. So I don't know if all titles are included in that option,
Right.
but that may be something that we can explore should you decide that to ultimately decide to show a movie, and after council approval, we could purchase that, I guess, that lease of the movie title. It was a little bit more expensive, but still within the budget that the EPC is allotted.
Okay, so if we went with that option, we'd then have to communicate it to residents that, you know, this movie was available for streaming on Earth Day. And how would that communication go out?
That could look like many things. I think we could use most of the same platforms that we used last year in the EPC marketing and outreach, and that includes within all of the town-produced marketing sources, such as the Almanac. If it lines up well with the Athertonian newsletter that goes out, the city clerk sends out weekly emails to a residential email list, and we'd be posting it on the town's website, reaching out to local organizations as well as the county to spread the word. And then if there are any other publications in which the EPC wishes to promote or publish the event in, we could look into that as well.
Through the chair, two other means of advertisement that I've seen happen in prior Earth Day events, which certainly could also be considered to be utilized for this year. There have been banners that have been created that are mounted at the intersection of Middlefield and Marsh Road. So big, large banners that could direct, for example, to the town website in which more information could be detailed. And then we've also done mailers, whether that be in a postcard form or a letter sent to every single residence within town. So like a flyer, an advertisement of sorts that could also provide that information of whatever that final viewing platform that's determined could be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the amount that we use up usually on marketing is almost more than the event things in the past. But you do need to get out the word, so it becomes like, how can you do this the most economically? So there's a banner on Marsh Middlefield sometimes, and we post things in those little town where I don't know if you've noticed it on a walk, there's like little boxes where they can be posted as well in neighborhoods, official things. If you have a little flyer online, that next door seems to work pretty well. And the almanac we have used in the past, and it's a little expensive even for a very small thing, but it is effective in getting eyeballs.
I think the EPC has also done, I equate them to like those political signs. Usually they're very brief, but could direct to a website, right? And you could put those around as well.
True. Yeah, we had a couple. We had also had like little flyers that, like Starbucks will let you do it because it's a like friendly thing. Like they have their little town square kind of thing. Like we had one in a couple of the local Starbucks even, and like a bike shop and stuff where people might go who would be more environmentally friendly. We've tried a variety of things because our budget is. Remind me, Jake, is it 5,000 or 6,000? I always think it's 6,000.
It's 5,000.
Okay, so yeah, it's not a giant budget once you take out anything. But there we have this year we could probably spend a little bit more on the marketing end to get more eyeballs. In that we can't have people meet in a place which could potentially cost money. We don't need to have food or drink or have entertainment beyond. There's going to be things that are going to be challenging because of COVID, because you can't really gather. So that's just something to keep in mind.
One more comment on the monetary end of it. That $5,000 that has been allocated by the council to the EPC for such efforts like production of an Earth Day event. If the EPC chooses not to implement an Earth Day event, please just keep in mind that $5,000 is not able to be rolled over past the current fiscal year. So say you do nothing and you choose to do nothing with that money. If it's not spent by June 30th of this year, it goes away. It does not roll over into next fiscal year's budget of July 2021 to June 2022.
And will the new buildings if we opted to do a tree planting, will they be ready for tree planting in April? I don't know.
No,
No.
No.
Yeah.
no.
That
I
is-
mean, right now it's estimated the target of July, but with construction, sometimes that's an estimated target. It could be a bit earlier, it could be a bit later, but I certainly don't think it would be done by April if you wanted to try to align it with Earth Day.
So that may not make sense, just timing wise.
Yeah, and also we've had tree plantings from the tree committee as well. So it could be a little bit of, overlap with them. In theory, you could partner with the tree committee if you wanted. Or it's just one of those things. It would not be an Earth Day though.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So what do you think?
Well, the streaming idea is nice just because everyone's already streaming everything anyway, and we know it's. I think it's just a question of how to implement it, and I'm the wrong person to ask. I can hardly operate Zoom. I'm sure I could ask my teenagers, but how do the rest of you feel?
I kind of feel like the movie is a good option in that we spent a lot of time researching and looking at all the movie clips last year, with the exception of our newest member. I'm sorry. And we had spent a lot of time thinking about it. So I kind of feel like it is still a good idea. It's very COVID friendly. It will give people a different thing to think about versus whatever they're watching on Netflix or Prime, etc. And if we get people from outside of our community, there's no minus, because then it just means people are more aware and taking some action.
Okay, yeah, that all sounds good.
It's just a question of how to implement it.
So through the chair, I see, thank you, Jennifer. She's posted some chat notes to the group that Netflix does host those Netflix viewing parties. I know I've attended those for one of my kids. I mean, that's been limited to maybe a dozen or so kids. But it looks like Jennifer's noting that Netflix would allow 50 people to view at one point. That's a potential platform. I mean, I don't think that if the overall consensus is that the EPC may want to try to move forward with a virtual movie screening, I don't think you necessarily have to vet all of the implementation details at the meeting today. That may be best served by the appointment of a subcommittee or subcommittees, plural, for various types of efforts, right? One of them being how it would be implemented. Like, for example, I think there was a subcommittee last year that worked with Jake on looking at rental of the big blow up movie screens and the audio and so on and so forth. So you can break up your subcommittees into various topics and tasks, again, if the overall picture is to try to move forward with a virtual screening and or anything else virtual at that same point.
I personally think it's probably a good idea, and that a lot of the legwork has been done, and it's new for everyone else. It's just not new for us. So should we break out some subcommittees? It would also be helpful if Diana was here, because she was a big part of the subcommittees last year.
Yeah, on that note, to interrupt, I'm just looking at the email that Diana had sent to Jake and to myself right before this meeting started. And it looks like she volunteered herself to serve on a subcommittee. Bear with me as I read through her email here. Oh, Jake, you're back on. Did I read somewhere in Diana's email that she volunteered herself to serve on Earth Day subcommittee? Yes, she says, can I be on a subcommittee as an EPC? Yes, she can. So you can keep that in mind as well. Perhaps that would be best if, we can always appoint perhaps her and another EPC member in case she declines the appointment, so that we're not left with nobody.
Okay. Kelly, would you want to do it again?
No. So the reason I've been really quiet is because I do a lot of event planning in my own work, or I'm sorry, in the work that I do for my wage. And moving to virtual has just been, for me personally, very difficult and draining. And it's not something I want to direct in spare time. So I'm sorry that that's like super blunt. That's my long way of saying like,
No, I
no,
understand.
Well,
I understand.
do you feel like it's just not effective? I mean, I think this is actually good feedback because before we embark on doing something like that.
Yeah, I think, well, I think for me personally, it's I get a lot of joy out of physically being with people. So I, for me, and kind of, and I create events that are, informational workshops for students, things of that nature. And so, and fun things. I did do trivia today. So if somebody wants to direct me to come up with a little trivia, like that's something I could do. But otherwise it's just like, you don't get the same return energy through a screen as you do when you are with people. So it's a lot of coordination and I think that for whatever reason, for me personally, planning something, it's like it's kind of enclosed in a specific space. And while it could be really creative in terms of like, there's a lot of various directions you can go within that space, it also feels restrictive. So that's kind of my personal relationship with it, I guess. I could tell you that from working with students, that they, at least college students, I think that they get really zoomed out, and I feel very much the same way often. For me, the Zoom or like online virtual meetings that I personally want to engage in are when I am engaging with other people and I feel relaxed and and there are smaller groups, so you can say more and you all have kind of like a like-minded reason for being there.
That makes sense. I mean, I've never actually been to a viewer party, but for those that have, can you see this event working like that? I mean, because it sounds like this is less a virtual, event than saying, hey, this movie is going to be on at this time and you can stream it for free. Do I have that right?
Well, depends. If it's Netflix, you can have like a Netflix party and you can have people log in and moderate. The thing is, if you've never done Netflix party, the first time can be a little bit tricky. It's not super hard, but it is possible.
It's clunky. It's a little clunky.
Is that better than
Yeah.
just saying everybody stream this, or like here, this movie's going to be on and available free to you? Do you think it's better to host it via a Netflix party or just give people the information?
I don't think people enjoy the moderating.
When you have the moderating, I mean, is there like a chat? I haven't done these either. So is there like a chat function? I will say
There's a chat.
I've done conferences with the chat function, and like and they didn't do anything else for networking, which was not a good plan because you're like seeing people from all over the world and once in a while you recognize a name, but that's like all the engagement you get out of it. I don't personally find that very fulfilling in any means.
So the more we talk about it, the more it sounds like people are not so into the idea.
What's the goal of the Earth Day event?
It's generally like to engage and inform the greater Atherton thing. To get 50 people, I'm going to tell you, is not a small ask for Atherton for any event. I'll let Stephanie speak more to that. But I've been in the committee, I think the longest, and I know how many Earth Day events I've done. And it's really hard to get out the message, to get people to come. I think people are always unaware, and they come, they are happy with the event and they enjoy it. We often see similar faces. So it's kind of, how do you do outreach for new people? So, and the tree idea isn't all bad in that way. But again, you're not going to have a lot of people. We'd be spending our money on a tree, which if that's what we want to do, I don't think we should waste our budget, because last year's budget kind of disappeared.
That's right.
So I'm up to whatever. We know that this will get approved. That's the plus. The minus is, do you think it's going to be effective? And this is only what you're going to get out of the discussion.
Yeah. And Jennifer, to answer your question, the purpose of these events, at least in the last, half dozen years or so, has always been to provide a town-sponsored forum related to public education on any type of sustainability-related matter. So we have done movie screenings before, but that also were accompanied by panelist discussions, experts in certain field, whether that be like low water use landscaping. We've done waste reduction type of panelists. We've had other events where it's been more of a, more of a festival type events with different booths, each booth being staffed by an expert in various topics of sustainability. So it's really a educational type of event is what its purpose has served.
Well, we could, if we don't want to do the movie, do like a delayed tree planting, and then maybe try to do some kind of historical plaque with the tree saying that this tree was, to commemorate the 2 Earth Day celebrations that were missed due to the coronavirus pandemic, and put the year, just because in Atherton we love our trees, and the tree will likely be there a long time on the new grounds of the new city building. I mean, we are kind of living through a historic time, and maybe the town will commemorate it in other ways, but that's just one thought. If we think that the streaming is, maybe will not have a lot of buy-in from the public, and people may not, really sign on to stream it in that 24 hours.
Because I understand that being zoomed out. I've done a few different conferences via Zoom, and some are effective and some are not. The ones that are the most effective have little breakouts, but they also have a lot more money to spend to make sure they're effective with technology and a team.
I think if we think that like Zoom is the problem, not when you talk about breakouts. I agree with you, Holly. And as I think, something I would be interested in is like a panel or something like that, speaking directly to like either broad scope portfolio sustainable investing, or even like startup investing. I think that would be interesting, and I feel like that might appeal to a certain base in Atherton as well, or something like that. And I know that takes coordination, because you have to find people, and but I do think that is, the more engaging. Like, to be honest, I might, unless I have a specific role during a video screening, I might not even screen it, because quite frankly, watching inside a video that's probably going to be kind of depressing doesn't sound like something that I want to do or is healthy for me in this time. So but if there was kind of, something where you did have like a topic and you had a couple experts speaking to it, and then you went into breakout rooms and had like some questions and sort of like talked about it. I don't know, maybe that's not private enough though for other Athertonians, because you don't want to like suddenly start talking about, would you invest in this metal straw or something like that. But those are just some thoughts.
It makes me wonder, does anybody know if any of our residents are experts in these issues?
We have like some people who run funds and that kind of things, but so far we've been trying to contact them has proven to be difficult.
Oh, I was thinking actually on environmental issues.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I'm being like
Oh,
like Eric Schmidt has a big, and especially his wife Wendy has a big environmental fund. We've tried reaching out to them in the past and not had a lot of luck.
oh, I was actually thinking about people who are more on the science side. So if we're not able to do, I like the investing idea. I think that's a good one. If we can't do an investing topic, is there anybody that lives here that's like, you know, a cool scientist who?
It has not been like our discovery from the past. I'm sure there might be one or two, and then it's a question of getting them to say yes. We have had panels in the past with scientists who did do talks. It's just a question of how do you get all those people?
Or yeah, just trying to think of other options. I think the Zoom burnout is a great point.
So I am part of it's like this group, it's a Slack channel, but it's got a ton of people from all over the world who are involved in trying to stop climate change from a vast variety of angles. And I've been working already with someone on it to try to put together a couple of panel discussions for what I am putting on at the school I work for. So that is a resource that we have available. I don't know how many people are very active on this Slack channel, and I haven't engaged with it a ton, but I can, try to utilize that in some way. I think we just need to think of like our broader networks.
Okay, so are we saying we should do the movie? Should we postpone? We have to kind of think about what we want to do because Earth Day will sneak up on us before we can. So what are we kind of agreeing upon and not agreeing upon? I'm trying to get like an inflection point so we can move forward with an idea.
Well, it sounds like people are iffy on the movie because everybody's got screen burnout, Zoom burnout. We don't think that the watching party would necessarily have a lot of buy-in. And sometimes the movies are depressing. I mean, one other point I'll make is that I'm not sure you're expanding your kind of audience beyond those people who are already interested enough in environmental issues to watch an environmental documentary or movie like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I'm just distilling what I've heard over the course of this conversation. So it sounds like people are tilting away from the movie, but anyone can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it sounds the same to me. I'm trying to make sure we're all kind of on the same page.
I actually feel fine with the movie. I was just trying to raise other opportunities.
My, I guess, only thought is kind of, Emily, to your point, that we're just already engaging people who are already interested. The thought of, can this money go to somewhere else? And of course, time is an issue, but I don't know. I wonder if there's any other faster kind of like educational sort of thing that we can push out that would go out via mail or something along those lines. But we do have a short timeline. But so where I stand is I don't know how much capacity I really would have to do anything to help with something that wasn't a movie leading up to April. But also, if it's just going to be a movie, I am kind of like, oh, I'll let other people please take the reins.
Okay.
A question, was there any kind of outreach on the leaf blower issue? Because that seems to be kind of, I'm just thinking about environmental issues that are pertinent right now to the city.
I could speak to that through the chair briefly.
Sure, that's perfect, Stephanie.
So there were notifications sent out publicly of the various public hearings and meetings, both at the EPC and the council level, where the topic of leaf blowers was just a discussion item before it hit the point of actually having formal consideration for making any sort of regulatory changes. But nothing to the level that was directed by the council last night, which was actually creating a separate education and outreach program, whatever that may look like, specific to the topic of leaf blowers, if that makes sense. So folks were notified that the item was a sort of topic of discussion, but there was nothing to support that beyond that, like brochures, flyers, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's a whole other bucket. It will take a lot of money to do. That's the other thing. We could like split it with the leaf blower and the tree potentially and then maybe we do Arbor Day instead of Earth Day.
I mean,
Thoughts, ladies?
that could be a possibility if you, instead of moving forward with an Earth Day work plan request to the council, you move forward with a public education and outreach program specific to leaf blowers, right? With the funds. That's certainly an option, and or anything else ancillary. Just obviously there needs to be some kind of nexus to the purpose, right, of the EPC, which I would feel comfortable saying that the two items that you've discussed have, right? So the purpose is to promote matters of sustainability and climate change in the town. So there's a nexus.
Okay. And you would say that would pass council muster. I have to ask.
On mute. Sorry. Well, I mean, I think you'd have to work through the finite details. I just opining that I feel that the potential direction of creating a public education and outreach program specific to leaf blowers, and separately potentially looking to have a virtual tree planting event would be a nexus. Yes. Now the details of that and the associated costs for either of those all need to be worked through, right? And it's difficult for me to give you an opinion as to whether or not that would pass council muster. But of course, I would just be recommending that whatever those final numbers are, that the EPC, try to stay within the allocated $5,000 budget.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
We understand. We know we cannot go over.
You can request, but I'm not going to. It hasn't necessarily been looked at as favorably with that type of request in prior years. But
has the committee or the town ever sent out any educational material about insects or animals of the area?
Not that I have been directly involved with. Jake, do you know of anything in those arenas?
I have not seen any materials produced regarding that, no.
Okay, so I have a little idea, and if it doesn't make sense and we're getting too off track, just shut it down. But my thought was, like, instead of something specific to leaf blowers, what if it was like about a creature that is impacted by leaf blowers, and it was more educational about that creature, and then you know, there's like some language in there about how leaf blowers are also contributing to the damage of their environment or something like that. So it's like a primer to leaf blower education, but might also be like captivating for people because it's not like about recycling again or something like that. Just kind of an idea, and I'm looking at an article from BBC about it. But that's
I like
a
that.
thought.
I mean, when you think, I really like that. When you think about people sitting at home with their faces stuck in Zoom, and we're kind of trying to solve that problem because the movie idea is actually such a cool event, and it sounds to me, being the new person, that the only hesitation on that is that people are so tired of having their face in a screen. And I love the idea of something. I loved it when you said insect or something fun like that, something really fun for people to be invited to think about in Atherton today, you know, kind of when you impact them. I love that idea.
So at first, I had this little thing that a neighbor from somewhere else I lived gave me that has like little butterflies on it, and that's what I thought of at first. But when I looked up this article, it's showing bees, and it made me think like, you know, something about bees, but you don't have to limit it to just the educational material. It's pretty simple to gather up people to do one panel discussion via Zoom for 1 hour, one day, to talk about bees. And maybe we still do a film screening and there's a film about bees, but it just like compounds. And maybe that way we can start with just the film screening and think on this piece of it a little bit more. In my opinion, it doesn't have to be on Earth Day. It could be Earth Day related, but be, you know, like May. I remember last year or even the year before, it was in early May or something like that. Anyway, those are some other ideas.
We started early on purpose because the 2 years ago Earth Day, I did a speakers panel and I had to recruit all the speakers, and you need to start super early. So that's always the challenge. It's just like, it's not a question of can you get speakers. You'll find people, and there are people online. There's lots of experts, but it's just connecting, making sure people are available on that time that you have. Even with COVID, still people have things on their calendars or other obligations. So it can make it a little challenging to like get everyone to sign off. That's the only thing. So what I'm hearing is we could do the leaf blowing outreach, sort of maybe data collection plus, you know, did you know, blah, blah, blah. Is that what you're saying, Kelly?
I'm sorry.
Did you know, like, I was like thinking like, did you know, like these animals are affected by leaf blowers, and it could be animals in your backyard or plants, or like, did you know your leaf blower, isn't it like 3,000 miles of gas per leaf blow for 30 minutes?
So I was actually thinking something even more subtle than that, because I think from what I'm hearing from Stephanie, the idea is that we aren't going to be putting out educational material about leaf blowers until we have a sustainability coordinator who can like really get that information across well with resources to do that. So I was thinking of like a primer that might be a little bit more approachable, in the sense that maybe like less politicized, I don't know, by just talking about like bees, and this is the example I'm running with right now. And then there's something within that, and you're there's like educating about cool facts about bees, and also like that they're in danger, but how do they exist in your backyard or whatever. And then something in there kind of like about like how leaf blowers also contribute to this negative impact on their habitats. So it's like really subtle. It's trying to like plant a seed, like this is coming.
It's an idea. It's just like how we get, I guess, again, it's like, how would this look like? You know, how are we going to distribute it, and how much do you think it would cost?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the brochure that we did that Jake designed, and something like that. But this is just an idea. We can go back to just the movie screening if that's what people want to do.
I do think the point about people being zoomed out, and I'm not sure if we were going to get someone in time to do breakout sessions, which I actually think makes the movie more dynamic. It would be like, that would be like what would make it feel a little more fun than just screening it at home. I tend to agree with that. It would make it easier just to screen it at home, and we could say, check, we did this thing, but we want to use our money wisely, not just use the money. So the idea you present is interesting. It's just a question of like, how do we want to, what is the underlying message? How subtle we don't want to be so subtle that no one gets it, but we want to at the same time engage the public.
Holly, to your point about this is our money and we want to use it wisely, it seems like there might be value to earmarking some of it so that when we do actually hopefully have this part-time employee, we do actually have some budget to spend on something, whether it's.
Yeah, I kind of think it might be worth it if we're not passionate. I feel it doesn't sound like anyone's entirely passionate about this, that maybe saving some money for the future so we could spend it on a little outreach would be helpful.
Yeah, and I love the idea of educating for the leaf blowers at some point. Because I do think we have a lot of communicating to do, and maybe once this person's in position, there'll just be more energy and direction behind it.
Okay.
But what is the likelihood that we'll have that prior to June 30th when
our
funds run
budget
out?
disappears? I think that's possible. I actually do think it's possible. If let's say it's February, correct?
But it's not just like June 30th, right? It needs to be at least a couple months before that so that things, people can meet and
yeah, you need about 90 days to like turn it all around to production, right? Where it can be whatever we have can go out the door, go online, etc.
If I may, through the chair, I just
Sure.
some feedback from the city manager, because so much of these pieces are sort of reliant on each other. And in terms of timing, so the earliest that the sustainability coordinator could potentially come on would be July 1st. And the consideration of the position would not take place until part of the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget, so June of this year.
Okay, so we'd lose our money.
Yeah, so but just please also keep in mind, all of that assumes that the council ultimately approves the position and its associated financial estimates in the budget. And we don't know those numbers yet, right? I prepared some estimates just based on other jurisdictions that I presented to the council, or that were presented to the council last night. But what it's going to look like for the town has yet to be finalized or developed in its draft form. But whatever that dollar amount is, it needs to be approved by the council for the position to move forward. So with that said, I think that if it sounds like there's some discussion that if you want to try to utilize these monies before the end of this fiscal year, you could utilize those or propose to utilize them, all of it if you wanted to, in the implementation of a leaf blower public education and outreach program, for lack of a better way to describe it, if you're going to effectively not move forward in any type of Earth Day event. Because the time that the resourcing that would, just based on prior experiences, the resourcing that has been required for implementing an approved Earth Day event
is considerable.
It's considerable. And so if you're not doing that, I think that the shift for such efforts to be solely focused on a leaf blower education and outreach program could be kind of a trade-off. But I don't think you couldn't do both.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. We don't have the budget for both, and we don't have the time for both.
Or it'd be difficult, at least I should say.
It would be challenging. So should we put this to a vote? Should we put up the movie idea and like yay and nay it?
So are the options leaf blower education or movie or tree or a combination of?
I think we have to kind of pick, well, the tree, it would depend on what kind of tree we selected, right? It depends on the species and how expensive that would be. Because as you know, trees can get expensive quickly. We have 5K. In theory, we could maybe split it. Do you want to, let's say, I don't know how much it would cost for labor, like time and labor to have the tree dug up, and put in.
Well, I was just asking. I just wanted to clarify what we were voting on.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out, we have to kind of figure out how much it's going to cost before I think we decide. So we know we have sort of some ideas about the movie. If we did an outreach, I think we could probably do a reasonable outreach with even $2,500 for a leaf blower outreach. Will it be perfect? No, but would it get started? I believe yes. What do you think?
I'm kind of having trouble envisioning it would get to me the full on leaf blower education I see why having a sustainability coordinator would be really helpful for that, because when you say getting it started, it makes me think like, oh, this is going to be like a kind of it'll have stages of education being pushed, which I think makes sense. And so it's hard for me to think of, well, I guess that long-term planning could happen now, and then like phase 1 could be implemented. Maybe that would work.
I just think it's on our radar, but it's probably not on the town's radar, is my thinking.
On the other hand, the tree idea is like directly related to Earth Day,
Mm-hmm.
or a little more directly related, and it's also permanent. And I liked the plaque idea too. And that's really that's a discrete project. That is so completely doable. Am I right?
That is correct. It wouldn't kill any of us, even in the COVID times.
And as you mentioned, right, we're short on time. It's not like we have the ability to put the energy and time into a super nice program on either of the leaf blower idea or the movie idea.
So is it possible to say something like, this is maybe a question for Stephanie, like, funds to be used for the tree, any additional funding left over to be earmarked for leaf blower education, which presumably there would be a ton of money left over. I mean, I don't think a tree is going to cost, I don't know how much trees cost, but it's not going to cost $5,000.
Depends on how grown they are.
Yeah.
Right. So yes. So what we would hope that would happen before the conclusion of this meeting this afternoon is some consensus on at least the general ideas that the EPC wants to see integrated into what I'm going to call a proposed sustainability work plan. I'm not going to use the term Earth Day anymore because it sounds like we're kind of steering away from that. I mean, you call it whatever you want, but just for sake of conversation, I call it sustainability work plan. And so within it, you do need to identify what efforts you recommend to be taken under this work plan. It sounds like there's two main pieces. There's one, the planting of a tree, and you can work through that. What kind of tree, what size, the associated plaque, and the costs of all of that. We can help support the estimated cost of that from the labor standpoint, right? Because it would need to be some town staff or contractor staff that would actually do the labor, and someone's got to pick it up, someone's got to get it to the town, someone's got to put it in. And then there's the cost of the tree. I mean, it's going to really vary. We got to pick a compatible species, probably. You got to pick a location. You have to look at the existing approved landscaping plan for the Civic Center, and make sure, you don't want to create issues with whatever was already approved. So there's like so many little nuances that would need to be developed, and that's okay. The general idea is let's plant a tree and a plaque somewhere at the new town permit center. And a subcommittee can start doing some research with staff and working through the at least estimated costs. And then, yeah, you could say, if there's, just say it's going to cost $2,500 for that effort. You can say the remaining $2,500 we propose to be slated to help support initial public outreach and education efforts on the topic of leaf blowers. This could include such things as, I don't know, again, development of a town-wide mailer similar to the, what did we call the last one? Jake, sorry, it's escaping me. The green sustainability issues, or whatever we called it, right? You could do some work on a website, the town's website, these kinds of things. So at least it has to be general, but there does need to be an estimated cost associated with it. So if you want to say a tree to the range of $2,000 to $3,000 and remaining funds slated for public education and outreach. I mean, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong. The cost to do a townwide mailer is like almost $1,000.
It's about $750.
$750, yeah, for a postcard, I think, right?
Yeah, correct.
And that's the last time we did it. Has postage gone up since then? I mean, I'll just say around there, right? So, you're looking at an additional maybe $1,000 or so to consider funding. And I mean, if you don't spend all the money, you don't spend all the money, but obviously you can't spend more than what's there.
Right. And by the way, I do think it would be very cool to have a section on there that talks about insects and other creatures and, the life cycle affected by blowing and overblowing.
I want a section about like the leaves are good for the ground or whatever the science behind that is
Agreed.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think people don't know that. So yeah. And then on the tree, another thing about the tree as well is that it kind of, when you think about the year, it fits the year. It fits a COVID, it's something living and growing and permanent and solitary.
Well, last year was the 50th Earth Day year. It was like the birthday of Earth Day was 50. So it's kind of important that we do something to commemorate that, even since we kind of lost last year.
Yeah, I like that. And trees are always, a memorial, right? Like, trees, memorials, and it seems appropriate.
Yeah, they're kind of quiet and strong, and they make it. So it's like kind of a good theme for the year.
So have we decided on scrapping the movie and going with the tree?
Let's go with the tree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really into this tree idea now.
Well, I'm glad we had a discussion, because if you asked me at the beginning of the thing, we would have like a movie and we'd be figuring out how to distribute it. So this is a good discussion.
Well, the other thing is, I think we can do some free media around the tree. Certainly we can tell the almanac about the tree we're planting and why. It could be a very nice story for the town as well.
That's true. You are our PR queen.
I wouldn't say I'm the queen, but I'm thinking it would be a nice story. I'd like to read a story like that.
Maybe out of us, you're like,
Yeah, I like that idea of just telling a story about it and how about it. It has. I didn't know the 50-year anniversary, and that's cool.
So are we agreed on the tree as our
Yes.
with whatever remainder money going to, like, we'll call it leaf blower plus or sustainability outreach?
That sounds good.
I'm doubting there will be remainder though, because aren't trees pretty expensive?
It depends on the species we have a lot of things, as Stephanie has already mentioned. We have to figure out, one, where it's going to go, Two, if it's like near any buildings, I think it should be deciduous so it's not dark inside. It's nothing's worse than having like an evergreen up near a window that never loses its leaves. It's like dark and gloomy. And like I just like lots of things. What other things have already been slated to be planted? We need it to like, you know, work with those, work with the terrain, and then how big. We probably will only be able to afford a smaller species versus a big one, and also where we would get it from.
If I may, through the chair, since it sounds like there's consensus on the idea of planting a commemorative 2020 tree with an associated plaque somewhere at the new town permit center, it could be beneficial for the committee to also consider the appointment of a subcommittee to work just on the finite details of the tree. Such efforts could be a meeting, I guess obviously it's gonna have to be over Zoom, where we could invite the town arborist, share screens, review the landscaping plan that's already initiated for the Civic Center and kind of map out where that may go. She may have some recommendations on appropriate species, given whatever other species of trees and or shrubs that are already slated, looking at locations, et cetera, et cetera. So you could appoint an ad hoc subcommittee to just work on the finite details associated with the tree. You may also want to consider either that same committee or a separate committee to work with staff in the development of an actual draft work plan to be presented to the council that includes those finite details of the tree to some capacity, right? The somewhat finite details,
Of course.
as well as some details regarding any leaf blower education and outreach, because we'll want to package it, you know, somewhat similar to the Earth Day work plan that is included as an attachment to your packet today. So that has to be done. Those blanks need to be kind of filled in specific to this new program. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
So do we have any hands raised?
Well, I want to say, because of my skill set, you may want to use me on the educational materials rather than doing tree research.
I don't mind doing tree research.
And I'm happy to do the work plan and work with staff.
One idea for location, and I don't even know if this is possible, but it would be cool to put it near the library just because it's going to be kind of an educational tree. And maybe I don't know if that's even possible over there. I don't know what their landscaping plan is, but it would be cool if it's at a place where kids can come and read the plaque and be like, oh, 2020, I heard about that year.
Yeah, that would be nice. I think that would again be like, you'd have to be able to look with the arborist, talk to the arborist and see the architectural plan to see what's already slated, because there's going to be some things already slated for that space.
Yeah, just
And and just one note, I think our tree, whatever we pick, should be something that's a local tree and not a different type, because we're working with sustainability and the idea of like less leaf blowing and everything else. It's like, as you know, the things that are, you know, California natives tend to lead less pesticides, et cetera, because they've already built up their abilities to fight off pests, et cetera. So I think we should really.
Oh, sorry.
The arborist will have suggestions, but I think we have to really talk about Cal natives.
Yeah.
I think it would look kind of funny to pick something from the East Coast or something. I really think we should pick a California native.
totally agree.
Through the chair, there doesn't have to be an appointment of a subcommittee to work through the tree details. I mean, you can provide some direction to staff beyond what I've already heard if you want. So far, I've heard evaluate the possibility of planting such a tree closer to the library, and that whatever tree species should be local and a California native tree, maybe drought resistant, water tolerant, etc.
Etc. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
I mean, we can do that and integrate that direction, and also evaluate both the costs of purchase and installation into the final draft EPC work plan that it sounds like Chair Joseph has volunteered herself to be the appointed subcommittee member for.
For which I will happily take other people. Anyone? Okay. Yeah, that sounds perfect, Stephanie. And then I can just chat with you and maybe the arborist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds like we have kind of consensus on where we want to go.
And I'm happy to volunteer for whatever you need for that.
Okay. Okay. So then I hear Holly and Jennifer to be appointed on, we'll call it the creation of the draft recommended EPC sustainability work plan. You mean we can?
Okay. And Stephanie, when does this need to be done? Because I know we have a due date coming for council.
So, well, it depends. There's study session meetings that are held the first Wednesday of every month. I'm just looking at my calendar. So you've got
Okay.
February 3rd, which I think would be kind of a push, frankly, to try to get something prepared by then.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then you're looking at the next regularly scheduled council meeting is the 17th, which means everything needs to be finalized by the 9th at the latest.
Okay.
Which gives you 2.5 weeks of time to turn around. And then the next would be March 3rd study session, which gives you like about a month, slightly less, to put something draft together to work, the ad hoc, to put something together with staff. And then staff has to formalize it, write a staff report associated with it, and then submit it for distribution and council. So, I mean, if you're not looking to do this for around Earth Day, right, then pushing it to March maybe isn't necessarily as time concerning as it would have been related specifically to an Earth Day event.
I like the Arbor Day idea. Isn't that June? When's Arbor Day?
When is Arbor Day? Let's see.
I keep thinking it's in May. Hold on. We're all probably Googling at the same time.
I think it's April 30th,
Oh, it
which
is.
is
Yeah.
about a week after
Earth Day. They're pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, also though, about planting it, we got to check and see.
You may not be able to.
Yeah, I haven't been over to the construction probably in like a couple months. I mean, it looked, they're moving along, but usually the landscaping is the ultimate last thing, right? To
Yeah,
happen.
it is.
Because they don't want it damaged. So we'll have to figure that out.
But site selection can happen.
Yeah, site selection, tree type, size, etc. The other thing is availability, though. Sometimes these nurseries, like depending on the time of year, have certain species and or sizes more readily available, right, than other times of year. So just little nuances that we can work through. So when there may be like a range of potential trees that you'll want to present to the council, or we'll want to present to the council ultimately. But honestly, Sally Benz-Dalton, our town arborist, she's really on top of all this because that's what she does all day, every day. So she knows the nurseries, she knows what's out there, she knows the compatibility, et cetera. So hopefully she'll be able to help us. She'll be a good resource.
So as a group, how do we feel about this idea, generally speaking?
I feel great about this idea. I think the one concern I have is like, we would have to buy the tree before June 30th. And my only fear is like, if the tree is sitting in its pot for months and months and months while the construction drags on, but maybe I am
it's usually okay if it sits for a couple months.
Okay.
Trees.
I was going to say maybe I'm
under.
underestimating its
Can
strength.
buy also mean allocate to the provider? and wait for your tree to arrive?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's sometimes that's something we'd have to ask the arborists on our work detail plan. Like, when do you forecast this being done, etc. Because sometimes they have to special order it, so it may not even be there to arrive. It could work out just nicely for us. It's good to forecast things that aren't going to work, but it's also good to like think of things that could work.
I think this is a great idea.
I like it.
Okay, I guess we have an Earth Day that involves a tree. And we could try for Arbor Day, and it might be a little optimistic, but doesn't mean it will never happen.
Great. Okay, if I can then, through the chair, just to make sure I'm hearing the direction by the committee as a whole correctly. There has been consensus that the EPC will be preparing a sustainability work plan for this fiscal year to be presented to the council for review and authorization. The general context of that work plan will contain 2 key items. One, the purchasing and planting of a new California native commemorative tree with associated plaque to be planted at the new town permit center as adjacent in proximity to the library as may be determined feasible. And it will also contain some level of detail for the development of a public education and outreach program regarding leaf blowers to be somehow distributed and maintained community-wide with an appointed ad hoc committee of Chair Joseph and Committee Member Carrico to help develop that draft work plan for staff to finalize and present to the council for review and final authorization.
That sounds perfect. And Stephanie, when I know that there's going to be a piece of this that's on you to like kind of figure out maybe when the arborist is available.
Yeah.
And when you're available, would you like to set up that next subcommittee?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to would you like to also set up that next subcommittee meeting? Will you send us an email with like maybe your availability for the next steps?
Oh, absolutely. So now that we have
Okay.
the appointment of the ad hoc subcommittee, Jake and or I will follow up with you, Holly, and with you, Jennifer, sometime next week, and look to set up that first kind of kickoff meeting so that we can discuss and identify follow-up tasks, follow-up meetings, etc.
Perfect. That sounds really good.
Great.
Well, we're getting to that portion of the meeting. Do we have any additional comments? Then I guess we need to move on to our next one, which would be confirm our next meeting. So what would you suggest in this case, Stephanie? I guess it's just really a subcommittee meeting.
I'm not hearing any specific direction for the creation or appointment of a special meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting will be in March. Where am I? Trying to pull up the calendar. So if the committee as a whole here feels comfortable for the ad hoc subcommittee to continue working on this work plan with staff in that interim period, then there sounds like no need for any further discussion or desire for further discussion on scheduling a special meeting and just working towards the next regularly scheduled meeting of March 18th.
Okay. That sounds perfect.
Okay, great.
All right, I need someone to move to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Any seconds?
Second.
Anyone? All right. And the motion carries and we can adjourn the meeting and I will see you in March. we'll report back with details.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited about our beautiful tree.
Yeah.
Me too.
Good idea. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.